Yeah.
So let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good morning, Amy. My name is Claudio, and I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the studios in Fairfax City. We are very humbled that Ami Hassinen of Nemesis accepted our invitation to our show. Amy, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much. This is an honor.
Oh, no problem.
And
No
greetings from the north. Yes.
That's right.
Greetings from the north.
That's right.
Yes.
So tell me, this has been a weird year for everybody since March last year with the pandemic and not able to go outside much. And the vaccine, some people don't want to take the vaccine and cannot tour, cannot, you know. How is this affecting your life, your real life, your normal life? How's this affecting you,
Yeah.
your family?
I'll have to. Yes. I've been very lucky in many ways because in Finland, the country reacted quite soon, so it didn't get so bad as in many other European countries.
Yep.
And for me personally, I live in the area in Finland, which is it's a bit remote, so we don't have that much contacts. It's not a big city. It's where I live. It's rather small, and it was a good thing regarding this virus because it stayed rather low level here most of the time. There was a single burst of cases, but it was reacted quite soon, and I think I haven't been sick by the virus. I've been vaccinated one time. The second time is coming in a month, and my family has also been saved so far. So it hasn't been as bad as it could have been.
Gotcha.
I'm very lucky in that sense.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, same here. I took the vaccine right away, but in some countries they're way behind, and they didn't take the stuff seriously at the beginning, and so unfortunately, so many people have died. So lucky to be alive, man. So many people cannot say that. And,
yes, I agree. Yes.
Yeah. What do you, if you don't mind, do you do something else for a living, or music is your main source of income?
No, no. I'm more maybe a semi-professional would be a good term because I've made music from the late 80s and more or less semi-professionally from the early 90s, and my daily income comes mainly from art teaching. I'm an art teacher, visual arts. I've been an art teacher since the early 90s, and it's a nice job in that way that there's little times when it's not that busy, so I can concentrate on music more. And I've been sort of balancing between the music and the visual arts all the time, and it's very nice to have a sort of, it's not a great income, but it's more or less constant and secure. So it sort of gives me a freedom to make any kind of music I like. I'm not economically dependent on the music making as so far. It has been sort of my life has sort of A side and B side. Sometimes during the day I'm on the B or A side, and after work it's the B side, and then I'm a musician, more like that.
Gotcha. I understand. As I mentioned,
so double life in a way.
Yeah, I'm an engineer, and but music is my passion. I have a big music collection and interviews and talking to people, and it's great. So I'm very lucky, and I'm very happy that I'm able to talk to great musicians like yourself. So let's go back to the beginning. Were you born like in a musical family? Did you start taking piano lesson, or when you were a young kid, or?
No. My family was musical in the sense that there was a lot of music at my home when I was a kid. My father liked jazz, sort of 50s jazz, 40s swing, and my mother, she liked more of pop music, even Beatles and bands like that. And but they both love especially classical music. So it was a lot of classical music playing at our house. I have a sister and brother. They both have studied music for to the late teens, or they chose another professions, but they studied quite heavily also music when they were young. I was the one that had non-formal education in music at all. I was more interested in the visual arts as a kid. I was not a sport. I was not any kind of athlete or anything like that. I was always about arts. I love them. And what's so funny is that I'm the only one of my, when you think my brothers and sisters, they studied music, but they are not that keen, or they are interested. They love music, but they haven't taken it up as a sort of serious hobby that stays with them all their life. It's me who was the most amateurish of them all. I took it most seriously. Yes, I don't know what's the reason. Maybe I didn't know that. Maybe I didn't know that Maybe I thought that I was talented. maybe it was that. I don't know.
And then when
I'm a dilettante in any way, any musical way.
I got you. Were you involved like in any band in the equivalent of high school here? Before you finished high school, going into college?
I played in the bands when I was young. Yes. I played guitar since I was 15, then bass guitar, and slowly I became interested in the ambient music and synthesizer music. And Isao Tomita, the Japanese musician who made classical music with Moog synthesizers, his albums were playing now and then at my home when I was a kid, and they made quite an impact. I think that was the seed that steered me towards the more experimental music. And I played rock, psychedelic rock music like Pink Floyd or Hawkwind or things like that for the first 10 years. Of course, there was the heavy metal phase and all the obligatory phases you have to go through. But after 10 years, when I was a young adult, I sort of steered for the more experimental and synthesizer music for good. I wasn't interested. I like rock music, of course, and I have a good record collection. I have many great artists that I very much admire, and I have all their albums. But most of my time has been spent with electronic music.
What kind of, in terms of ambient?
When I started to play the synthesizer, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You saying
yeah.
You
Okay.
play synthesizer?
Yes, from 85. Then I bought my first synthesizer, Micro Moog synthesizer. And that really opened the possibilities for me. And I played it as a side instrument in the bands that I played. I played mostly bass guitar at that time, but also did something with synthesizers on the side. And it became so interesting, so that I finally I just left the bass and concentrated on the synthesizer. Over time, I bought a few more. The synthesizers were relatively cheap at the time. It was just the time when people were more interested in early digital synthesizers like Yamaha DX7 and things like that. And they sold away their analog synthesizers from the 70s very cheaply. I was around at the perfect time. I could obtain very cheap, good analog synthesizers during the mid-80s. When late 90s they became, it became fashionable to play analog synthesizer again, so it became very expensive also in Finland. But I was a few years early, so I could get quite a collection at a fair price.
Gotcha. You have like a studio at home that you where you record and play, or
Yes, yes, that was one of the great things about playing synthesizers. You didn't need a professional studio. You didn't have to pay for studio time or anything like that. Uh, I got a friend who was interested in the electronic music same way. We too we were probably the only people in our whole town that were interested in synthesizer music, and of course we found each other. His name is Jyrki Kastman, and he's the other half of the Nemesis for the first 10 years when we were operating. And he also bought a few synthesizers, and we decided that we make a group and try to make our own favorite music, because we felt that nobody was doing the right kind of music at that time in the late 80s. And we sort of put the band together, and from the start we had our own studio. We wanted to be like Kraftwerk. We have a sort of factory where we make the music. We don't need anyone else to help us in the process, and that was very good because I bought a DAT, the first digital tape recorder, very early on, so we could make decent recordings. The only problem was that we always had to do live recordings. We didn't have any kind of sequencers or things like that. Or the ones we had were very simple and very basic. But we had to train to play the track, our parts very well, and then we just pressed record, and it was 2 tracks to the DAT. That was the final track. That was quite exacting method to make music, but the good point was that we didn't have to use time for mixing or post-production. It was ready when it was recorded and the take was good. It was done. It would be ready for release. Only later in the early 90s we bought our first multi-track unit. So then things changed. The music was done more precisely and with more afterthought and more post-production after that. It made certain things easier, but also it made some things more difficult. Perhaps because we made our first albums. They are basically live recordings in the studio. So that was always the preferred method for us. We always liked to work that way. It was more exciting. Of course, the multi-tracking was great, but you sort of get more the music has some kind of a spirit when it's recorded live. It's more like a document, something that is going on. When you try to make recordings with multi-track, it very easily becomes very bloated and there's too much stuff going on, and you sort of often lose the feeling with multi-tracking. Recording live, I love the directness of it, and we still use live recording a lot. Most of our stuff is also today. It's live recordings in the studio, but we work on them afterwards. We add little things, take something out. But basically, the live recording is still our preferred method of making music.
sure, perfect, great answer. What kind of music were you listening? Besides, all the big name, were you listening to Brian Eno or Tangerine Dream, Ashra Temple? What remember when you started in the early 80s? What kind of music, kind of ambient music, electronic music were you listening to at the time?
Yes, it sort of was a combination. Jyrki, the other half of the Nemesis in the early days, he was a very great fan of Jean-Michel Jarre and Kraftwerk and Thomas Dolby and things like that. I was more oriented to Pink Floyd, Hawkwind, Spirit, many kind of bands that were still rock music, but they were on the edge of the electronic. So they had very experimental and synthesized elements in their music. But slowly I was going towards the more electronic bands, and Klaus Schulze. Tangerine Dream was a very big thing for me when I found them in the early 80s. I liked their music, what they were doing then. I had Exit, one of their best albums. It sounded a bit synthesizer. It sounded a bit fashionable, too fashionable for me at the time when it was released. But afterwards, I have understood it. It's a fantastic album. But it was especially the early 70s albums like Phaedra, Rubicon, Ricochet, Stratosphere. The albums that were made by the legendary lineup Franke, Froese, and Baumann. They are probably my favorite electronic music in many ways. But we also found Brian Eno. He was one of our heroes early on. And just when we were putting together our studio, it was in those times the techno music was coming up. It was very early. Yes, 87, 88. The first techno artists, they sounded very interesting at the time because they used synthesizers probably in a bit of a new way. And after 2 or 3 years, we both listened also a lot of more ambient electronic techno music like Future Sound of London, Global Communication, Apex Twin, The Orb, the more psychedelic, more painterly side of the techno. I didn't like that was basically Prodigy or bands that were very aggressive and oriented purely to the dance market. I didn't like them that much, but I liked those who were sort of more progressive, more ambient, but they still had the rhythms. That was very important for Nemesis in the early days. In the early 90s, our music was a sort of combination between the techno, ambient, and the traditional electronic music from the 70s. And I think that was our recipe for. Therefore, I think we got our recording deals and things like that. People liked it because it sounded very analog, very synthesized. It had a beat, but it had also something else. It was not dance music as such. It was more like armchair techno. Or later there was a term called intelligent dance music, IDM. We made music that was probably like that up to 2 or 3 years earlier. It was sort of a combination from all the electronic music we loved and liked, and we made a sort of combination from that. There was also some other artists that are not so well known nowadays. There was a German record label called IC, Innovative Communications. Klaus Schulze had something to do with the label, I think. I think he was one of the originators. They had quite nice albums in the mid-80s. There was a band called Software, and we, especially Jyrki, liked Software very much. It was one of the early favorites also, but we haven't listened to Software too much after those years, but it was at the time it was quite interesting. For me personally, it was a very great moment to find the music of Steve Roach and Robert Rich, two US musicians. I love them both. Their music is magnificent. It's very long form. I'm sure you're familiar with their stuff, and they were sort of opening a window in the early 90s. I've followed them both since then. I bought all their albums, and I love both. They had a sort of great, lots of echo, lots of reverb. The music was sort of a widescreen. It had sort of desert or jungle feeling. They were very important too.
Yeah, the great names that you mentioned. I have the opportunity to interview Robert Rich as well, and I'm in touch with some of the people that play in the IC and Software. So, and yeah, hopefully I will have
that's great.
Yeah, and Mr. Roach also. email him. So we're trying to work at a day where we can do an interview. Yeah, all these people are very, very, very famous. And, Klaus Schulze is not
Yeah, yeah.
doing that great now. He's kind of sick and he's outside music now.
Yes, yes, I know.
He doesn't do interviews,
Yes.
just he go to
He's sort of given up, I think.
yeah, I think it's
Yes,
that.
that's too bad, but life happens. Life happens.
Yeah, yeah. Peter Baumann is very good also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, I love Peter Bauman's solo work. I love his albums Roman 76 and Transharmonic Nights, and also
Yeah.
these new ones are very, very exciting music. He has a sort of, I love the way how he doesn't mask or he doesn't leave out the humanity of his playing and his music. He still has that kind of playful, same times a bit dark feeling in his music. It doesn't sound like it's done on a computer. It has a sort of liquid feeling, the music, and I like the moods he makes. He was a great asset to Tangerine Dream in the 70s, and it seems that he somehow still manages to get to that area if he chooses to. But I think he's a he's a talented guy. He can do many things. So I really hope he would make another album
Yeah, he's now
in the
involved
near
with.
future. In
I
the near
think
future,
now, yeah,
he's a
I think,
great
yeah,
musician.
great music. I think he lives here now in the United States, and I have not been able to get a hold of him. But he's kind of going to the business side.
Yes, yes.
You know,
Oh,
I don't know if he's doing that many
yes, I think
recordings
he's in
lately.
Los
Yeah,
Angeles
yeah,
or
Los
San
Angeles.
Francisco.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Los
Yeah,
Angeles, I think. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yes, you should try to get. Yeah, I think he would speak hours of interesting stuff if
yeah,
you got
yeah.
hold of him.
I'm trying. If you can give me give me an email where I can email him. Yeah, I'm trying to get a hold of him. Some people reply, some people don't reply. Some
No,
people say are busy, and it depends.
yeah.
But
I'm sorry, I don't have any contact address for him, but he seems to be a person that goes very fast from one thing to another. If you get him in the right moment when he's into music and making music, then I think he will speak very freely.
and I like.
Yes,
I'm happy that you like
but
the
he
album.
also has many other things going on.
Oh, he has a lot of things going. All the albums that you mentioned from Tangerine Dream with the Stratosphere and Rubicon, those are the best times from Tangerine Dream. That music was very, very good early.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Then they began doing soundtrack.
yes, yes, and I love the way.
Go ahead.
Yes, I also like many of the things they did in the 80s. In the late 80s, I think they went to a direction that I personally didn't feel it's very interesting or anything like that. But it's good that they are still going on in a way. But for me, it's most important is the 70s stuff. It was very innovative. It was very new and very artistic, and it was they were sort of like. They were a bit like Pink Floyd of the electronic scene, if you like to portray them like that.
Yeah.
Very
No,
important band, I think.
yeah, absolutely, man. In terms of the musical influence that you have at the time when you were in the 80s, where you were guys were putting the band together, you feel like on one hand, electronic music was important to you. Obviously, you were listening to all these big names that you mentioned, but as well, you were listening to progressive rock and jazz and rock. So you have a mixture of a lot of different influence coming to you in order to you to perform
Yes,
music and create
yes,
music. So it wasn't just electronic music, right? So
yes, yes. In the early days, it was great before we had any kind of recording deal because we could make any kind of music we liked. We could take influences from right and left and center, and there was no restrictions in that way. After we got the recording deal, we sort of started to feel that we have to we have an audience in what we have to, and we have to be in the service of the audience. So it maybe in the late 90s, we probably were trying to think too much about the music that we are making beforehand. Before that, it was more spontaneous. And but in the late 90s, I think that we got very good groove going, and we made a very great album in the 1999 called Sky Archaeology. You can find it in Spotify, but unfortunately we don't have rights to release the album another time yet, maybe later in the future, but it was a great album, and it was our best album in Finland. It was very well received here in Finland. We made a lot of concerts at the time. It was, in a way, it was a sort of a high point in the Nemesis career. In the very late 90s, we were joined by a third guy, Joni Virtanen. He's the third guy in Nemesis, and he likes the more soft music. He's very into ambient music, and he's very good at sampling and using a sort of field recordings and software synths and like things like that. And when he joined Nemesis, we moved more to the ambient side. We sort of gave rest to the more techno flavor we sometimes had, and the band became much more ambient after that. And we are still on that same path in a way. We have made albums that are purely ambient, that have not a single drum sound on the albums or beats or anything like that. It's very natural for us. We just like sounds, and especially electronic sounds and their combinations. They can be anything. One of our latest projects was an album called Off the Map. It was a collaboration. It was Joni, me, and Finnish musician Juha-Matti Rautiainen, who works under the name Juha-Matti Rautiainen Soundscapes. He's a very interesting guy. He makes his music with bass guitar. He's a bass guitar player, a complete professional. And he had an accident about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. He lost one of his fingers, or tip of one of his fingers. And he had to change the style of his playing, and he became interested in ambient music. And he makes his music mainly with bass guitar nowadays. He has a lot of loopers, lots of effects units and things like that. It doesn't sound like a bass guitar at all, but he makes fantastic music. He's a great fan of Brian Eno. You can hear it on a certain level in his music, and we made a collaboration with him. It was great. It was very, very well received, and it was a great album. We had great visual input from Kimmo Heikkilä. It's one of Finnish visual artists who often design Nemesis album covers, and he has done some very excellent work, and he's still the guy. The next Nemesis album will come out before Christmas, and he will make the designs also for that. And that was a very nice collaboration, and it was purely ambient music. There's no drum sounds anywhere, but it's
I got you.
Do you have the album?
No, I listened to that particular album, the map one of the map, and I really like it. It's very, very good. I really like it. It's very, very good.
Yes, I will supply you
thank you.
with one later on.
Yeah,
yes.
I got you. The other album that
it's
like,
one of our best albums, I think.
Yeah, Hydra, and I like the tune called the track Citus.
Okay.
That's
okay. Yes.
Yeah, feel free to elaborate on that particular track if you remember it.
Yes.
It's very good stuff. That album.
Okay. Yes, I remember that. Thank you. The interesting thing about Hydra is that we make our music nowadays mostly by improvising. We make the three of us, Jyrki, Joni, and me, we make group improvisations. We record them. We record each guy separately on the separate tracks, so we can change things around later on. And I'm the main guy doing the editing. I sort of construct the tracks from the improvisations. And during the last 3 years, we have made several our stuff, and some of it is very, very good, and something is sort of okay, and luckily quite a few are useless. But we have so much material right now. I decided to make a sort of outtake album first. It's it's the other way around than usually. The Hydra is sort of material that probably won't end up on the official album. It's sort of pre pre pre-release in a way that it sort of gives you a hint what is coming. I really like that I really love that you like the tracks, because I like them too. They are good, but CD can have just 80 minutes of music, so we have to make choices. So this Hydra album is sort of material that I felt is good enough to be released, and I liked that people would like to hear it. But the main album is still in the works, and I can assure you it's at least as good as the Hydra. I can promise that.
Gotcha.
Yes.
The other album that I really like was I think you have the Kino sessions with Yuga,
Okay.
and Kinotic. I think it's called the one track Kinotic Music Corporation. I think you have the Kino session 1, 2, 3. That's very good too. I mean, different, but very good.
Thank you. Yes. That's by me, Joni, and Juha-Matti. Jyrki was unavailable at those sessions, and we made the music with Juha-Matti in the same way like we make Nemesis music nowadays. We sort of have a short conversation, what kind of style we are going for, and then we decide. Often we decide some kind of a key or notes we are going to use, and then we just press play and let go. And they often take about 7 minutes to 25 minutes, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. And the nice thing is that almost always we end up in some totally other place we started with. It's sort of adventure to improvise with two other musicians, and the results can sometimes be so interesting and so strange that you couldn't get them in any other way. If you made plans and sort of made a script beforehand, it just doesn't work. It doesn't surprise you. I think it's very important for me personally. When I make music, I want to be surprised. I don't want just to go through the motions and make the same track many times. Actually, a few years ago, I played a few years in the rock band called Moonwagon. It was sort of it was progressive rock with some psychedelic styles, a bit like Hawkwind, Gong, or bands like Camel or something like that. I played the keyboards in that band. It was great. We made a couple of albums. They have made as a trio when I left. As a trio, they also have made a quite very good albums too. But I very soon sort of grew tired of. We had to rehearse for every concert we did, because we didn't have a tours. We have just a concerts here and there. So we had to have a rehearsals for the single concerts. We had to play those same tracks in the same way over and over again. After a couple of years, I decided, this is not the way how I would like to spend my time. So I left the band in all friendly relations with the musicians. But I sort of understood that I'm not a band musician in that way anymore. I sort of love improvisation. I prefer the music to be made like that. It stays fresh, and I think the Off the Map album with Juha-Matti it's one of the best things I think I have been involved with in the recent years. It was very successful in my opinion, and it was also done very easily. We had sessions for just one day. We played about 8 to 9 hours during the whole day. We had breaks in the middle in the old disused movie theater. it was a magical place. It was thunderstorms outside. We were inside, and just the three of us. We improvised for 8 to 9 hours in total, and the results were surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I think it's important to get you in the right mood. If you're in the right mood, you can very easily success. But if you're trying to improvise in a bad mood, or you have other things to do, or you are not peaceful enough, it often doesn't work. But when it worked very, very, very fine indeed.
Gotcha. Beautiful, man.
I'm sorry, I
No, it's fine. It's fine.
yeah.
You have
My answers are my answers are very meandering, I think.
no,
I sort of forget what I was asked.
no, you're good. Don't worry, man. Looking back in your
Thank
career,
you.
is any particular concert or venue that is stay in your memory? Like, man, that was an unbelievable show. Was a great venue. If you look back, is any one or
Yes.
two in particular that you?
Yes, they are. Some of them are very special. In the early days, we often played so-called raves, techno raves. Lots of people in a sort of empty car market or thing, or some kind of old factory or things like that. And they were always very rhythmical events. Or the music was very rhythmic, and the lights were flashing, and they were very interesting experiences. They were sort of or a sort of overload of everything, of sound, lights, and music. And it was sometimes it was very sort of exciting to be on stage making the music at the moment like that. And sort of I sort of miss those days, because those days are probably never going to come back, for good or worse.